Hi guys, welcome back to MK Sportscars. Now, first off, I'm going to kick off here. We're outside with one of these, an MX-5. Now, if you've got one of these and you love it, and you don't want to turn it into a ultra fire breathing lightweight sports car, but you're thinking, I want more power out of my MX-5, I'm going to talk through how we turn out a stock 1.8 MB into a 340 horsepower, fire breathing little monster of an engine. So stay tuned. Towards the end of the video, I'm going to talk you through that. But first of all, let's get into the workshop. Right, let's kick off here in the workshop. We've got the it's a Mazda base, so it's RX-5, but with a different engine, the booster in. So we've been on with this, with the build, with the customer, and a few bits have changed over the time. We're going to sort of show you some things that's been going on. Radiator package has gone on that's customer supplied with it. It's a 42mm radiator. Should be alright for a road car, not a problem, but we have put a nice big oil cooler on it. It's got a 34-row oil cooler, and this is the fabricated bracket that we have laser cut done, so it mounts all nicely with these 180 bends. They're AN10 fittings that we use on ours, run through, and that all connects up nicely to the billet sump down here. The fitting's already on there. Got one more line just to put in, which is this one here, which will feed back to the other side. The other line's gone in, and then just under the sump there'll be the temperature sensors and everything else that sits under the bottom. So the package has gone on. It's got a nice fan on it. It's got a 12-inch 120 watt fan. And you can use a 10-inch 180, but with bike engines and track work, if it's ever going to see it, it's nice when you come in the pits to have something that's got to have a decent bit of cooling on it to draw through on these radiators. Started on the plumbing, pretty simple plumbing on these actually. You've got the top hose, it connects to the thermostat housing bit under here, the bottom hose here, which just comes through down to the water pump, and then from the water pump, you are literally coming out, and it's just in here, this little section here that you see, and you're coming out, and this TPC will be going up to the header tank. That'll be coming up to the header tank, and this goes in to the bottom hose, and then we'll have from the return from the top of the rad, which once the header tank's in place, that will come up to the top of the header tank. So really simple cooling. No electric water pumps on this particular one. It runs on the standard booster water pump, run on thermostat, basically nice and simple. Battery location, we're going to put that down in here. We're just going to mount the bracket. We're just doing something with the bracket there to modify that, so that'll be mounted up, ready. All the gear linkages in, nice and smooth, just with a very simple push rod here, with a rocker bearing, and you can literally move that with your, well, one finger, look. Literally one finger to change that, so it's going to be nice to drive with actually. We've moved on with now, we've got a slightly different, but this has got the billet one on it, like a machine gun, isn't it? Which we do, but they are radius and everything else, so they are RVA compatible. It was all radius for 2.5mm on all of these edges. Some of the early ones, or some of the other people in the marketplace, they do them, but they're not sort of IVA. They've got very sharp edges, so if you go for that, make sure you got it's IVA compatible. Moving on with the wiring, that's all gone in. We started fixing and securing seats and seat runners in place, because that's all in. Steering column with a quick release boss on, and if you're doing a quick release boss, got to make sure, remember the two forms of collapsibility, which is steering wheel on this particular one, and then in here you'll need a collapsible boss, which we do, we sell them. It's a collapsible boss where it goes between the steering column and boss and the steering wheel, and it must go in, otherwise it will be a foul. So little things going in like stickers and a bit more wiring have tied in. Fuel oil pressure sender gauges down here. This is having a digi-dash, so we've put that in, we've rubber mounted that to stop it, because if you solid mount these to the block, they have been known here to foul and fracture. So it's quite heavy, and if it's there and it's bouncing around, it can crack there, and you don't want to lose oil pressure. So if you're going to do these, make sure you remote mount them and make sure it's in a rubber fitting, so that this can move and flex all nicely with this braided hose into the block there. And there's a couple of places you can pick up, but we take it out the oil pressure switch, which was standard on the bikes. It's a 1/8 MPT fitting that screws into there, and we've made a little adapter line to mount that, and then we run the wiring up to the dashboard as well. So little things like these little pots These have got low level indicators. Again, it's an IVA thing where little float inside, and I'll show you. We tend to not to use this style anymore, we've moved away, but this was an earlier kit from a customer. That's a little float in there to tell you your level, and you need that to come up as a low warning level for IVA compliance. If you're racing and you've got a race car, you don't necessarily need that, but for IVA you do. Moving on, back end was just working in, fuel tanks in now. That's all secured nicely with the straps, and getting ready with the hose that will fit up to the back panel, and the one-way breather valve is in, so if it tips over, it's got a little bearing in here. If you did put one of these, well, not that it's easy to put one of these on its roof, but if you did put one on the roof, this would then stop the fuel gushing out as well. So it's a little safety precaution, but also it allows the air to breathe out when you're trying to fill up the tank. So the air needs to come up and it needs to be able to fill up the tank, then it pushes the air out as well. So that's really where we're at with this particular one, coming along quite nicely. And next thing will be pretty much a bit more plumbing, a bit more bits and bobs, and then we'll probably be on with wiring, because this is going to be running the stock loom, so it's going to stock standard loom and stock standard ECU with a power commander, and then it's quite a bit of modifying to do on that. You've got side stand switches, you've got tip over sensors, you've got all of the little clutch switch things and all that. It's all got to be isolated out of the loom to get this bad boy to run. Right, back outside again, because we were in Cup 200 territory, and it's outside because the customer's going to be collecting it. Well, you're thinking, well, what have you done to that? It's a brand new car, it's mint. Well, a silly little thing really, which was just a side panel replacement, which was on the driver's side there, because some damage just there. So we've set about, all you have to do is unbolt the cage, unbolt the scuttle, unbolt the nose cone bonnet, and then you can replace, and the rear wing comes off, and you can replace this section, because it is joined, as you can see there, as per that, and you can replace that one section in there. Now, you think, well, it's only minor, how do you do that now? A little bit of a hint and tip and advice, I suppose. When you're putting your car on your trailer, make sure it's not like that, because it will beach itself in the centre. So make sure you've got a nice angle on your ramps, and then you won't be bottoming out your car, because these are low. I mean, look, just over 100 and odd mil. So if you've got a nice angle in your trailer, as they say, trailer, then you won't have that problem. But I mean, it could have been repaired probably in situ, but it's a brand new car. Customer, rightly so, wants to make it looking nice and clean and tidy, and it is a great product and it's a great car, and I can see why you just want to replace that little bit there. So we set about that. It's a few hours work, it's probably 5 or 6 hours by the time you get done to fit them, but it's not the end of the world. You could probably do it, you know, live with it if you had to, but now it's like new. Right, more chassis production. There's more over there, and plenty of chassis that we're trying to get production, stepping it up, get the kits together for customers, and the service we offer, which some of you probably all know. I don't want to beat it on the same drum, but brake lines and fuel line fitting services. So this has had this done, this particular chassis, and we've got the brake tee in with a brake light switch here. This is an M10x1 fittings. Just trying to give you an idea of how it, I know you few guys are building them, so it's always nice to see a visual of how it loops in for us, how we've done it, neat and tidy. You like to keep it nice and neat and tidy right the way through, and making sure you've got your distances. We always say, innit, well, if you can do that pretty much with your hands and your fingers and you can touch them, then it's alright, but it's 300mm maximum, making sure that this doesn't touch the chassis. And it's a safety thing for wearing. It's all over the chassis rail here. So it's up, front master cylinder, rear master cylinder, and obviously your clutch. And now we do, so I'm going to tell you the sizes. This is 0.7, this is 0.75, and on the Mazda ones here is a 0.625. So they're your 3 pots. Now they've got the standard screw caps, and then remember, if you're doing IVA, you've got to have the little floats in here as well, just on these two, not on the clutch one, just on these two for your brakes, which we spoke about. Pedal box has gone in, and two lines here for your fuel. These are 8mm lines that go right the way through to the back, following the brake lines, fuel in and fuel return, right the way through, same as the brake line here coming through, neat and tidy, fixings well within distances. We put quite a few fixings in the centre. We do not want them coming off, because to do them afterwards would be an absolute pain. So doing it now, very much simple. and then you're coming out like the same at the front into a T, and then coming out to your braided lines here. So again, keeping it nice and neat. The IVA inspector sees them, he's going to like it. He wants it nice and neat and not touching the chassis. And you've got one that's coming from here. This is your fuel. So your fuel fit will be mounted here, and this is coming off your tank. So nice and simple. And this has had the lowered floors in. So we've got a lowered floor pan, it's pretty much a 50mm drop in here with a front section pan. So for you guys that are slightly taller, we can drop you down a little bit. It really does help, and it nice and fit done. But standard floor pans, to be honest, if you're 6'1", 6'2", a standard floor pan, isn't it, Lewis? You're about 6, were you?
6'2".
6'2", Lewis is, and it's perfect, isn't it, on a standard floor pan. If you're taller than that, then you're probably going to need it. Right, so I promised you at the beginning of the show how we was going to turn that engine that's in there, which is 140 horsepower, and add another 200 horsepower. So this is what we've done with the demo car. So this is the RX-5 with the turbocharged Mazda 1.8 engine, but I hear you guys out there, there's tons of people who are MX-5 enthusiasts and they want to just do it on their MX-5. Get it? This is what we've done. Doesn't mean it's the right thing, but this is what we've done. So, engine is stock other than the con rods. So we just put a set of forward rods in there. So the pistons are stock, everything else is stock, nothing has changed. But you will need a set of rods in there, and you'll easily achieve 340 horsepower with those. The pistons you can take probably even more than that, to be honest with you. If you start going past their numbers, then you will definitely need to be looking at pistons. But we haven't touched anything else other than the rods on the bottom end and a service kit, you know, new seals and new gaskets, those kind of things on there. We've upgraded the leads. We've got new leads here because you've got more spark, more power, so we have upgraded the leads. Stock leads will probably okay to a certain power, but we've just as a precaution, and some people go COPS or coilover plug system. We haven't felt it's necessary on this particular amount of power, so but nice quality new set of leads. And then the plugs inside, they've got the NGK 7REs in there as well, so it's slightly different plug, not the stock plug, so the spark plug in now. You definitely need to change as well. Now while we're in this section here, we've got the injectors that are down here. So stock injectors won't achieve any effect, so we've got the EV14s in there. They're a 640cc injector. They're upgraded, so we've got more spark, more fuel, and then we're going to go air. We need colder air, so intercooler. Now in your MX-5 you've got a ton more room than we have under here. Our intercooler is mounted here under the front, but on an MX-5 you've got a nice big intercooler in there. We don't sell those for your particular kits, but there's plenty out there. Go to the likes of Boffy Racing and a few other people out there, MX-5 specialists, who will be able to supply you with a intercooler. Now that linked up with more fuel, better spark, colder air. Strap that to your turbo, which is here. We've got a TD04 19T, so it's a hybrid, so it's a split impeller wheel in there, 19 blade rather than the 13, and we've got an 8 psi, that's a stock actuator, but we link that up to a little boost solenoid down here. There's a little boost solenoid here that bleeds off to allow this to run a little bit more boost. You're going to be looking at about 18-20 psi, somewhere around there. This will give you 8 psi, and most of the turbos now, if you buy them online, will actually be clocked, because the standard turbo isn't the correct direction. They will be clocked with this bracket for your setup. The manifold we supply here, we've got them on the shelf in stock, and this particular manifold will clear your suspension turret there on your inner wing as well. Now you will make this forged section here as well, comes with the manifold kit, those two parts, and then you will need to make your exhaust link pipe to join in to your exhaust system, because it's very different to ours. So you got manifold, you've got hybrid turbo TD04, you've got spark plugs, spark leads, standard coils, and then you've got your fuel. So we've got the 640 injectors in there. You're going to need the 4-flow, you're going to need a fuel pump upgrade. So we put a 250 litre per hour pump, which is in our fuel tank at the back. But again, that is a plug and play affair that can bolt in line on your Mazda fuel pump. So you're going to need to fire that. A stock one will probably run up to the 240 horsepower range, but you're going to need a 250 litre per hour pump to really give that fuel, because you've got a lot of fuel, you've got more spark, and you've got more air, and you've got more whoosh bang than you'll ever need. and your air coming in here and your rods on the bottom end. Now all of that needs to be controlled by your ECU. So we would then, if you're doing a stock Mazda, you can do an ECU card change. We can throw some links up to these guys for you, and you can swap that over, and there's a built-in MAF sensor. We use the Motorsport electronics. Easy for you, that it's a card changeover. And again, this is something you could do in your garage at home. You will not need massively specialist tools. The only thing that would be difficult for you if you weren't an engine builder is doing the bottom end rods. Because obviously that requires someone with some knowledge, and you may want to balance the bottom end while you're doing it. But if you weren't doing that, or you're knowledgeable, everything else can be done at home in your garage. So running that lot together, giving you 340 horsepower, is basically probably the cheapest horsepower engine. These are phenomenally good engines for what they are out of the box. You'll easily run 250, 260 on a stock engine. That will work as long as you don't map the torque too low down, and you get it up through the mid range, more like 4,000, 3,500, 4,000 rather than 2,500. The rods will take it, not a problem. But if you go in this horsepower, you do need to do the bottom end. So if you want to know more about this particular car, you can come down and see us here at the factory. We can take you out. Or there is another video. We've done a little test drive on this one. If you think, gosh, what will my MX-5 go like with that sort of power? Lewis will shove a link up there where we've done a little test drive on this thing the other day. And I can't remember the 0-60. We're trying to get a 0-60 in this. It's so hard to launch in with such a light car. But it's around 4 seconds or below probably, isn't it, Lewis, when we launched them. So yeah, if you want to know more information about that, come and see us here at the factory, or hook us up, phone call, email, and we can send that information in for you. Right, next up is the Sport 200. We're doing through this IVA prep. Car's built, running. We've been doing the emissions for the last couple of days, getting into the final stages really, and it's just making sure everything's compliant. Little bits and bobs when you're building it, making sure everything's cable tied in place, no loose wiring, no loose cabling, fixings are working. When you're steering lock to lock, how we do with the braided lines, make sure none of these braided lines are touching. So we've got it on the ramp, we'll get it up in the air, because when you build the car, you're building from the top rather than from underneath. We just make sure everything's nice and crystal clean underneath. All the lights are working, everything's spot on, because it's all brand new. You're testing it, we've got plug and play on the looms, but you're just doing the small details, getting it up, and then we'll just do some test driving today to making sure, one, the speedo works, making sure that's up to that. We can do a little test on that with a GPS. We make sure we're good to go, making sure your wing mirrors are at the right height, which is from here. They do the rear visibility test, they take from your shoulder, and I think it's 9 meters out and then 2 meters wide, and you need to be able to see that on the ground. So if you pace out 9 meters, which is somewhere out here, guys, somewhere out here, and then you'll have this line here, that's what you need to see on the ground. And then you'll be golden. Then you'll be golden. So yeah, a few little bits we're just touching up on this, but it's a nice little car. Gen 2 booster, 205, 206 horsepower these will make all day long. Be a quick track car. Now, there's a few people out there who've already had it, so if you're watching now, Mike Ford, I know you've been out on yours, comment below. Go on, how good was it on track? I know you've been at Cadwell lately. Well, how good was it in Cat? Let's hear the comments down below, how good these things are. So yeah, we're just buttoning this one up. We've already had a Cup 200 go through IVA last week, no problems, first time pass. You'd expect that, of course, and we'll just throw this one in the next week and look to get this off to the new owner. Right, here we are with a little RX-5 turbo, customer hashtag Sam's car. We're doing some bits on this, getting it MOT prepped really. So one of the things that we've been doing is, this is a decap pipe. We've now manufactured and put in one with a cat and mapped it accordingly so it does meet the MOT emissions as well. So cat link pipe, decap pipe. Same principle, you can just bolt this off and bolt that on. It's probably a 10-minute job. One thing it didn't have around here was a fog light, so we've had to put a fog light in, which is just down in here, this section, which we've tried to keep it clean and put it on the diffuser there. and make it nice and clean, because it's got a nice clean sort of setup on here. It did have an alternator issue which was sorted out as well, and then there's a couple of little teething jobs that we just do to make the customer get it dialed in for him, and yeah, be going off to its MOT very shortly now to make sure she's all good for that as well now. So I think this one might be coming up for sale. I'm not sure. Customer's looking to sell it. If it is, we can put you in touch with him if you're looking for a Mazda base kit, RX-5 turbo. It was a home built kit by a customer, but they make, you know, with this TD04 on here, it's a 13T. I know you're always going to see 230, 240, sometimes 250, depending on what it is and how much wastegate and pressure. It's got a solid on here. It's a VVT, so I'm going to imagine it's going to be around sort of 230. That. Try not to put more than 10 psi through these VVTs. The rods don't really like low down torque. The NB, so the Mark II, this is Mark 2.5, is a little bit stronger. You can put a little bit more on the rod, whereas on this one you're looking at, yeah, around 10 psi. Don't get me wrong, still more than enough to have fun with. Right, another cracking week. The weather's been fantastic. If you want to know more information about turning one of these Space Rain chassis into one of these, which is an RX-5 or a Cup 200 or a booster power car, then hook us up, a phone call, email, and come and see us at the factory, and we can let you know how the process works. That's it for this week, guys. Remember to like, share and subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.